Welcome back to Secrets Behind the Stars, the channel where stories are allowed to breathe and hidden truths finally find their way into the light. If you're visiting us for the first time, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and hit join if you want to help us keep bringing you the kind of human stories that linger after the credits roll. Today, we're not chasing rumors or scandal for scandal's sake. We're tracing memory, courage, and that particular kind of love that keeps echoing even when two people have gone their separate ways. Because healing doesn't always arrive when we forget, sometimes it begins when we finally choose to speak. In the constantly moving universe of Turkish television, where every look can carry a plot and every silence feels deliberate, Cemre Arda has always occupied a realm of her own. Composed, meticulous, protective of her private life, she seemed to build a sanctuary around herself, inviting admiration yet maintaining a mystery that only deepened with time. But even the calmest surface can hide tides. Recently, something quiet yet seismic happened behind a closed door. A source close to Cemre revealed that she had begun therapy, determined to face feelings she had kept tucked away for far too long, feelings intertwined with one man, Gökberk Yıldırım, her former co-star and the person fans once believed might be more than just a colleague. No one expected what would surface in that room. Those familiar with what unfolded say that, after minutes of stillness, Cemre let out words that seemed to stop the air. There were truths she'd never given voice to, and they all led back to Gökberk. It wasn't a dramatic outburst. It was the sort of confession that shakes you precisely because it arrives without ornament, a soft acknowledgement of an ache that never learned how to fade. For those who followed their work, who rewound interviews and searched for something unspoken between the lines, that moment felt like both confirmation and a door opening into something new. When the therapist asked why she had held herself back for so long, witnesses say Cemre answered with a gentleness that made the room feel smaller. She feared breaking something she still held dear, even if it no longer existed in the same form. In a world where every statement is rehearsed and every pause is analyzed, the honesty of that answer rippled outward. Within hours, timelines were buzzing. Fans wrote that her heart had never fully moved on, that time may dull the edges but doesn't always erase the bruise. But what caught people wasn't nostalgia. It was the rawness of a woman daring to tell the truth about a love story that had never been fully spoken. An insider familiar with the notes from that session insists the conversation didn't stop there. Cemre is said to have revisited a night she couldn't forget, the last time she saw him. She didn't plead, didn't argue, didn't try to change his mind. She just watched him leave, believing that her quiet would say everything she was too proud or too frightened to utter. It didn't. The silence, it turns out, spoke a language neither of them could quite translate. Meanwhile, away from the spotlight's glare, Gökberk Yıldırım had been navigating his own landscape of memory. In a recent interview, when asked about the past, he replied with deliberate restraint, he doesn't discuss what's behind him because some stories can only be read by the heart. One line, restrained and poetic, and suddenly everyone was talking again. Many took it as an intimate nod to Cemre, a message wrapped in wisdom, a way of saying more by saying less. Those close to him later whispered that when he learned of Cemre's session, he fell silent for a long time before admitting, almost to himself, that she had always been the braver one when feelings were on the table. Neither camp confirmed those words, but their echo traveled fast, reshaping the narrative from headline fodder into a meditation on timing, vulnerability, and the courage it takes to admit what love once was. Then, just as it felt like the story had reached its most delicate point, another detail surfaced. Months ago, Cemre wrote a letter to Gökberk, a letter she never sent, a letter she folded and tucked into the lining of her purse, a secret passenger to red carpets and set visits and long drives home. Those who've heard about it say the letter was not a plea, not a script for a second chance. It was a wish for gentleness. She didn't want to be a thorn in his memory. Even when she kept her distance, she was rooting for his light. In one line, she's said to have called him both her harbor and her storm, the calm that steadied her, and the wind that nearly blew her away. That revelation shifted everything. It wasn't about whether a romance could be resurrected. It became about how two people carry tenderness in new shapes, how they honor what shared history had tried to teach them. A few days after her confession, whispers spread that Cemre had made a request, a special therapy session, with Gökberk present, so they could speak honestly, face to face, and close a chapter that had never quite found its final page. No one knew whether he would say yes. According to those in the know, he asked for time. He wasn't certain his heart was ready to hear whatever it was she needed to say. As those days stretched on, fans of both stars filled comment sections with messages that read like prayers. Sometimes, someone wrote, "An ending needs one last conversation." The words kept appearing, like a chorus everyone already knew by heart. What about you, dear listeners? Would you do the same in Cemre's place? Would you seek a final meeting with someone who once held your entire world in their hands, or would you let the quiet keep its fragile peace? As time moved forward, both actors began to change, subtly, as if their lives were running on parallel tracks. A close friend of Gökberk's claimed he admitted that she had taught him what love without bargaining looks like. And if he could rewind the clock, he wouldn't let pride speak in his stead. That confession, bare, stripped of performance, resonated for anyone who has ever learned too late how loud pride can be and how costly it is to listen to it. Cemre continued her sessions. One moment, in particular, stayed with those present. The therapist observed that the deepest loves can wound the most, because both people keep expecting to be understood without saying everything out loud. Something in Cemre gave way then. Tears, quiet and stubborn, arrived. She confessed that she had hoped he would read what she couldn't bring herself to say. The room, witnesses recall, felt both heavy and lighter at once, the way air changes right after a storm. When she left, she told someone she trusted that perhaps this was what she'd needed all along, to be able to see him without the old bitterness clouding her view. It wasn't a promise to start over. It was a promise to stop carrying the weight the way she had been. Then came an evening under bright lights, a trophy in hand, and a crowd waiting for a speech. Gökberk paused at the microphone and, instead of the expected list of thank yous, he offered a single line that landed softly and stayed: "Some stories don't finish. They learn a different rhythm, breathing in new ways when the old music fades." The applause that followed was more than a celebration of his career. It was gratitude for the honesty of someone willing to admit that love can transform without disappearing. Old photos resurfaced online. Edits with songs that once seemed to belong only to them found new life, and people added their memories to the shared thread. "Not every love needs to return," one comment read. "Some just need to rest without hurting anyone." The words began to feel like the unofficial motto of their journey, a gentle reminder that endings can be kind when we allow them to be. A therapist's wisdom soon made the rounds in conversations about the pair. When love stops aching, that's when healing truly begins. Maybe, some suggested, this was never about rekindling a flame. Perhaps it was about forgiveness, for youth, for pride, for silence, for the places where fear spoke louder than truth. So here we are, standing with them at an invisible crossroads. Did they ever sit across from each other in that shared session, eyes steady, hearts finally ready to say everything that went unsaid? The answer remains a guarded secret, as it should. What we do know is this: both of them seem lighter now, as if the story is no longer something to outrun but something to fold away carefully, like a letter that doesn't need to be mailed to be understood. What do you think, friends? Can closure exist without reunion? Does every untold story deserve one last meeting, or is it enough to let what once was become a soft place inside you, a private truth that no longer burns? Tell us in the comments. If this story found its way to a quiet place in your chest, please like the video, subscribe to Secrets Behind the Stars, and consider tapping join to help us keep telling these fragile, human stories that connect us all. Until next time, stay gentle with your memories, stay curious with your questions, and remember, silence is not always emptiness. Sometimes, it is love learning how to be at peace.